Transmitting to you from Old Heart Radio.
Prepare to have your bones chilled and your hairs raised. It's the WacArnold's Brothers podcast.
Welcome home.
Whoa, he figured it out. The technological miracle that is. For somebody who leans on tech as much as as much as I do. I'm bad with it, man.
You told me to slurp.
I did. Nothing like that morning cup, man. This obviously is another episode of the WacArnold's Brothers. This is episode 36. We're getting closer to another special episode if you keep
we are
listening.
Yes, we are.
And we have a bit of a fucking wild card movie, if you ask me. This week.
Yeah.
I was sold on this movie under the guise that like the person, it was like a Scream situation where like, you know, Samuel L. Jackson's name is on the movie and he's on the cover and like instead of, you know, it's like he's the Drew Barrymore
like
of this movie.
Switch, yeah. He's only in it for like 3 scenes in the very beginning.
Yeah, it's like kaput. He's in and out.
Well, I guess there's like a scene near the end with him in it, but yeah, he's in it for like maybe a minute and a half. Yeah, it's totally it's so like small. They tricked you with that one. But it's also like interesting because it's a trauma movie.
Yeah, so. I didn't realize that when looking at it either. I was like, whoa, oh! But as soon as you start the movie, Lloyd Kaufman's name pops right up.
have I ever told you the story of how the Toxic Avenger like traumatized me as a kid?
No.
Okay, so I was probably like 7 or 8. You know, I like Terminator 2 was my favorite movie. I'd seen like Aliens and Predator.
Oh yeah.
So but I hadn't seen like crazy horror like the like Toxic Avenger was. So for anyone that doesn't know, it's like a really gruesome brutal movie. There's characters in the movie that like have this little club where they get off on running over children. There's like obviously an unfortunate rape scene. It's not it's a gruesome movie, but somehow it spawned a really lighthearted animated children's show. And also spawned
That's right.
An action figure line, which I had some of those figures and watched the animated show. So anyway, my parents were pretty loose with like what I could rent. And one weekend I was like, oh, cool. Like I found the Toxic Avenger. I was like, oh, cool. And I watched it. I got like halfway through it and it just like, for some reason, just terrified me and traumatized me. And I just shut it off. And I remember that was the first time that a movie like did that to me, and I stayed away from horror for a little bit until like a couple years later when I got back into it, like how we talked about watching Monster Vision. But anyway, like probably like 10 years ago, I watched it again just to get over that, and I realized how ridiculous of a movie it is. But like I said, it does have some fucked up shit in it.
Yeah, well, from like a more childlike perspective, like a younger perspective, like seeing some of that, it would freak you out because it doesn't matter how like campy it might look or anything like that as an adult, like or like weird as an adult. Like as a kid, you process all that so differently. So it's like
it's true. It's a good way to look at it.
You know, it's like it's like. What was it? I used to get terrified. This is so stupid, but I used to like when I first saw Brendan Fraser's The Mummy, like like the opening sequence where like all that like they're in ancient Egypt and Imhotep gets like thrown in the fucking like he gets mummified and shit like that. Like that whole sequence like fucking like scared the bejeebus out of me for some reason. I don't even think I'm at a good. That's probably I was probably at too old of an age to be scared by that, now that I'm saying it. But it kept me up at night. Either way, like when you're younger, my point is like you just have a tendency to just get spooked by the things.
It's true
that you don't as an adult. But Toxic Avenger, I completely forgot that spawned a fucking ridiculous. Like all that shit. Like and it became like probably the mainstay for the universe of movies that this movie takes place in.
Yeah, it's definitely the like trauma mascot for sure.
You know what I mean? Like
the reason that Lloyd Kaufman, has whatever money he has, essentially.
Yeah.
But this one is not the Toxic Avenger.
No, this one's interesting in a way.
Death, as the title says, it's called Death by Temptation.
Yeah.
It's more of like an urban, it's African American centered.
Yeah.
And there was some movies like that in the 90s, like in the later 90s there was Tales from the Hood, which is amazing.
Oh yeah. And when they finally did a Tales from the Hood 2 like not that long ago, right?
Right. Or a third one too, I believe too. But
and a third one, shit.
One of the cinematographers on this movie, his name is Ernest Dickerson. He directed Bones, which was another but he also directed Demon Knight, which is a Tales from the Crypt movie. I love Demon Knight. It's a great movie.
I mean, it's probably like one of the quintessential Tales from the Crypt, pieces to watch, really.
But I love how. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, you're
good,
is
interesting. But I love how the person that directed this movie, I'd never heard of him before. But James Bond the Third. But not only did he direct the movie, but he's one of the main characters, Joel.
Yeah, his name's all over this movie. Like, we always like talk about the credits, and in this movie, like, so front and center, you get that Lloyd Kaufman shout out, but then, like, almost every other page in the credits, you see James Bond the Third's name on it. Like, he does.
Like, who the hell is this guy?
I have no idea, and like, even so far as like at the end, there's this like dedication, and it's kind of sweet. I'm not trying to make fun of it too hard, but it's like it's like he lists like a dedication to his father and maybe his like brother, and it's like James Bond the Second, James Bond the Third.
Mm-hmm. I noticed that. Yeah,
like you keep seeing the phrase James Bond like all over. Anyway, he plays the one of the main characters, Joel, in this movie, the soft-spoken Joel.
Yeah, he actually, I'm gonna admit something. He actually did such a good job with the character where there's a scene later in the movie where he's like upset and starts crying, and it almost made me start crying.
Oh, shout outs, dude!
Like, it was that good of a like. Yeah, anyway.
Yeah, so this movie has a particular feel. There's some really interesting like kind of like shots in the movie, I guess cinematography wise. There's some cool angles that they capture and whatnot.
Totally.
It was kind of surprising, but the acting and the plot leave a little something to be desired, I'd say, in some departments. There's a few characters that kind of stand out, but there's just some like over the topness that really kind of seeps into this movie, which I fucking loved. Like, even so far as like one of the first characters you meet, that like the bartender dude, the mustachioed bartender. The
first bartender, yeah.
Bartender 1. He's like, the first conversation you hear of him, he's like talking to some like old flame, and he's like, just get the abortion, man. What's the big deal?
It's fucked up. Yeah, he's like,
like, what the fuck?
Yeah, it's like the first thing you hear, and he's like, you send me he's like, you send me the bill, baby, the check will be in the mail, or something like that.
Dude, he's like, I'm good for it, kind of guy.
And then just like instantly calls another girl.
Yeah. So shit. This guy.
He's like a playboy of some
playboy
sort.
Bartender who's like a Lionel Richie knockoff. Like, he's trying to cop that look, to get the ladies, you can tell. But he so you quickly get introduced from him to this other character who you'll see throughout. You don't really catch her name until later on in the movie.
Yeah, she's just called the Temptress.
The Temptress.
I don't think they ever say like her actual real name. They just refer to her as the Temptress, and then later we learn that her like demonic name is Temptation. But,
yeah, she's like exactly. She's
but yeah, we don't know her
temptation.
name, but she's obviously this, really pretty woman. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and they have that like the classic like "let me light your cigarette" moment interaction,
right?
And then she like, basically just tries to pick up the guy, and she invites him over to her place for her to pour him a drink.
Right. Yeah, it's against house rules for her to buy him a drink, so she wants to go to her place where there are no house rules, as she puts it.
So,
which would be tempting,
It would. Yeah, exactly. Temptation's there. So anyway, so you kind of cut to like, I suppose like the next day, maybe.
Right. That's presumably, yeah.
Yeah, like they really did a good job of telling you that later, but this part of the movie, in this part of the movie, you just like you gotta pick it up with like the bartender now in some fresh duds, this like bright red blazer, and like there's just this like overpowering just hip hop song playing. It's dope. I didn't catch the name of the song, but it's one of the things that's kind of awesome about this movie is the soundtrack. Kind of like it, and there's some moments where the music really plays a role, if you ask me.
Yeah, that's true.
But anyway, so he kind of like walks into this the door's like not wide open. It's unlocked. He walks into this like dusty looking kind of fancy place, right? And he goes like up this winding staircase and just sort of announces his presence, and she invites him into the room. Ooh, it's all
There's
just
candles lit everywhere. Like,
yeah,
it's a creepy looking place. Like, that'd be my first red flag. Like,
yeah. I'd be like, why is everything dark and dusty down there? And then this like weird den kind of room is like right up here. You have all these
Yeah, and then the second red flag is like he notices that there's a mirror that's covered. Like, yeah. He's like, why is this mirror covered?
Yeah, exactly. He like peeks his head at it, like looks around, like what? And then like I love the bed in the center of the room. It's so so just like over the top romantic, like kind of vibe. And then it gets passionate pretty quick here, I'll say.
Yeah, I love he like hops on her bed and he's like, you can tell a lot about a woman by her bed, and I forget the line, but he goes off about like something like, and I can tell by yours that you're a freakazoid ready to jump my bones because I got the key to your pleasure or something like that. It's ridiculous.
Oh my God.
It's over
so
the top.
So many fucking good lines in this movie. And so they do, they start intertwining slowly but surely, kind of getting each other's clothes off. Well, mostly his clothes are coming off. She's kind of just in like this towelish looking setup, Anyway, at one point she like wraps his belt around her neck and like leads him to the back room, and then you kind of hop into them having a shower and getting all friendly and soaped up in the shower, if you will.
Yeah.
But quickly that water that starts flowing, and it starts like, it's a cool shot kind of. It like turns, it just starts turning to blood.
Yeah, it's cool.
Like they're just getting blood poured right on him. He's just like, what? Slowly, and all of a sudden just freaking out. Like, and the dude, this is probably one of the just like this moment in the movie was just so great because it was so early on. The dude hanging fucking dong.
Yeah, he's hanging dong.
Just goes bolting out of the room and just like trying to escape. And like presumably you see, the lady or whatever she is at this point, like runs up on him, and then from outside the door you see like you basically just hear the sounds of her like feeding on him and shit.
Yeah. And the blood starts like pooling out from the bottom of the door. That was like you said, there's some cool shots in this movie, and that was one of them.
I know. Yeah. I was surprised by it. I was just like, whoa.
It's hilarious what you just, because I was literally gonna say the dude hangs dong.
Yeah, dude.
I've been rewatching Always Sunny, so that made me think of that.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that guy has nothing to be ashamed about.
He's hanging dong. He's hanging out, man.
But yeah. So anyway, long story short, he's dead. Like we said, there's the cool shot of the blood pooling under the door, and then we get the title card, and we get a title card that says we jump to North Carolina here.
Yeah.
And this is what we're talking about with like these brief scenes of Samuel L. Jackson, because we see that these are obviously in the past. They don't tell you that, but he's a minister. He's given a sermon about temptation. We see there's only one person sitting in the pews.
It's such a weird setup.
Yeah. And we learn later that, that's his son, Joel. But while he's giving this sermon, we start to see like this demonic figure dressed in black, like pop up out of nowhere and start to walk up on the child.
Yeah.
And then it's like cuts to the scene of the minister talking with the boy, and he's like, "You got to go live with your grandma now." And then it cuts. Yeah. Then it's just weird how these scenes right here just cut real quick. Then it cuts to a scene of him and his wife driving, and they happen upon the same figure in black, which causes them to crash their car.
Yeah. And then you see that awesome shot of like kind of the aftermath. Mm-hmm. Jackson's like dripping in blood, and so you kind of get the acknowledgement like they're both dead, right?
Yeah. But yeah, like that, and that's just it. That's those quick scenes, and then there's one real quick one in the end of the movie, and that's all that he's in it for.
That's what I mean, man. I feel like they were selling me on something they didn't deliver on a little bit.
It was another good example of this, and we're talking about black cinema. There's this fucking 90s awful. It's an awful comedy. It's called Fat Beach, spelled P-H-A-T, Fat Beach. And there's like, the reason me and my friends watched it one day like years ago is that like we thought it'd just be like this is when I was still smoking pot, so it was like, oh, this will be something funny to watch. It's because it was there on the cover was like, oh, featuring Coolio, and Coolio is going to be in this movie. He's literally in one scene for like 30 seconds, and that's it. I remember being so furious, so that reminds me of that too.
Oh my God, yeah. It's a burn. It's a bit of a burn, but admittedly, this is like before Samuel Jackson really got like this role was before he got like famous. Like this role was before Pulp Fiction. You know what I mean?
It's one of his. It's not his first role, but it's probably like his third or fourth, something like that. So it's not. Yeah.
No, one of his earliest roles, I think, also was in Coming to America with Eddie Murphy. He plays like the dude robbing like the. What is it like? What's the name of the burger shack?
It's been a while.
Anyway, yeah. Anyway, so you basically like cut from this to the introduction of the character Joel, who like wakes up from a dream, like this dreams presumably, right?
Yeah.
And you find out that he's still living with his grandma.
Yeah, she raised him.
Yeah. And,
because it just has, like you said, it's just these clips of these scenes, and it's her talking, explaining that she raised him since she's a kid, and that he's about to after this summer he will have completed his evangelistic training.
Yeah.
to become a minister, and then they have this like she has this drops some philosophy on him where she mentions that when you're close to reaching a goal, you'll be at a crossroads and have to look both ways to figure out what you want or something like that.
Classic sage wisdom kind of stuff.
Right.
You'll be at a crossroads, and one way or another, man, you'll have to go through it. It's good. Go. She does. I will say this: the actress that plays the grandma in this scene kept like, you can tell she kept kind of side-eyeing the camera.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean? And I couldn't. I kept wondering if the actress was reading off of cards at times, because like she kept like glancing like that.
Possibly.
It's
possibly.
So anyway, you kind of that kind of sets you up for like you get some basic like history of Joel's character.
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit. So then it kind of goes from there to like back to the bar, which
yes,
right, and Is this the first time you get introduced to the character Dougie?
Yes, and it's I love like all these reoccurring jokes that like Dougie's character has throughout the movie.
Dougie just can't catch a fucking break.
Yeah, it's like we get the first of many, like where he's talking to like a woman at a bar and exaggerating this crazy story about what he does.
Yeah, he's like trying to pick up this lady, and he's like, this one fucking. The first one is just great though. He's like boasting about like, I'm a martial artist.
Yeah.
He's like, from what you can gather, Dougie's trying to pick up this lady by telling her he's a martial artist who's about to fly out to go work on a movie with Bruce Lee, who turns out is not dead.
Yeah. It's amazing. There's also like there's one later where he says he's like essentially like a NASCAR driver or something. Yeah. Did you catch who the actor is though?
Oh my god, I've seen him in a million things. He's Radio Raheem from fucking shit. What's his name?
Bill Nunn. He's in a bunch of Spike Lee stuff. He's also plays what I recognize him the most from, just because I didn't see a lot of those movies when I was younger. But I recognize him as playing Robbie Robertson in the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy.
Yeah, buddy.
He's not a menace. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. That is him. Holy shit. I love that I remember just like seeing him, and like you see him in the first movie and he doesn't really say anything, I think. And then in the second movie he finally gets that line, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's not a menace.
Yeah,
it's so great.
And it was just always cool because like if you ever watched the 90s fucking cartoon, like that character was like a mainstay kind of like on Peter's side character.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, that's fucking rad. I didn't put that together.
But yeah, we get briefly introduced to him, and he gets turned down by this woman, and he actually gets called out by another woman who's like, he told me he was a surgeon.
Yeah. and then he goes, yeah, I'm a kung fu surgeon.
It's fucking ridiculous.
Like we could talk about Dougie for a while, but okay, like we'll talk about him again. But so you get introduced from there to the kind of scene, you get the new bartender 2, and then you get, the temptress is back at the bar. She is like always at the fucking bar. Yeah. And you also get introduced to, you see this character walk in, who's you see him like walk in and take his wedding band off and like put it in his pocket.
What a schmuck.
Yeah, like I'm ready to go now. Like the fuck.
Adultery. Yeah.
And what's his name? Norman, I think. And,
he introduces himself as John, but his name is Norman.
Yeah, John, and she like startles him by knowing his name. I loved like so he immediately just like gravitates towards the temptress and is like, and is like, can I buy you a drink? And she goes through this great sequence where like they're about to order some champagne, and she asks the bartender, like, bartender, do you have any Cristal? And the bartender, like, Norman's like shaking his head like, no, you don't, man. I don't got money for that. and then she goes, like she goes through a lot, all the fancies, like, what about Dom Perignon and like all this shit. Yeah. And then
it's funny.
It's a funny bit because particularly at the end of it, like Norman slides in this line, either way, you'll get an entree. Which is just like, you can buy that shit at the fucking 7-Eleven, like put it in your mimosa, you know what I mean? Like,
but the funny thing is, he is the one that it was his idea to get champagne, and then she's like,
and then he
rifles through all these expensive. Yeah, it is pretty fucking funny.
I love it. And either way, so they end up buying a bottle and they take it back to the temptress's house, who, it was her idea. She was just like, let's just fucking, make it there. Yeah. Let's go. And they do. They go back to that creepy pad, man.
Right. They're just instantly fucking.
Yeah, like this scene, like there's some like there's a few like gratuitous shots in this scene, in this movie, and like this sequence definitely had some like you could have saved some time cutting this sequence down, because there was like
I agree.
there was so much gyrating and moaning happening for just like too long, but
it was unnecessary.
You get this like toying, playful. You kind of see it is interesting because you see like the different moods of the temptress, you know, like she like isn't always like right for the kill. It seems like in this sequence she's like, you know, has a feather, and for the second time in the movie you see her lick something, like because she licks the belt in the first sequence with bartender one, and
that's right,
she licks the peacock feather, and she's like toying with him, and then she switches it to a blade, and Norman's like, whoa, and she's like, just chill, man, basically, and like, you know, she starts stroking him and starts cutting him, and you know, it becomes this whole fucking thing. And
yeah, you don't know his fate though, because you're led to believe, because she like starts to cut him and then he screams and it cuts away. Yeah. So you're led to believe that maybe she killed him, but that's not the case. We learn his fate later. But like you were gonna say, we jump away from that and we get introduced to another character, right?
Yeah. Well, you have another quick like Joel dream sequence where it's like.
Oh, that's right.
Like he like it's just another like weird. Something's chasing him down like a city street, and then
like an alleyway or something.
Yeah, and then you get introduced to the character Kay, who Kay seems pretty fucking cool. It's like a bit of an older brother figure to Joel, but like, you know, good friends.
Yeah, we learn all that later, obviously, but yeah.
Yeah, and so like Joel, you get introduced to him because they have a conversation where Joel's calling Kay and being like, I'm questioning what you know, my path in life. I want to maybe come up and, you know, see New York and see you. And you know, and Kay being like, which I thought was super cool. Was just like, yeah, come on up, man. Like, my
door's open.
Yep. You know? And so they kind of set that up, and then, you know, you kind of see how, you know, they have a few little bit of back and forth talking about his grandma, you know, and all that stuff.
Yeah, Joel like mentions, you know, it's kind of like branching off of that conversation he had with his grandma, where he wants to take a break to see things more clearly before he continues on his evangelistical path, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. And so then it kind of goes, you get this kind of, you know, a fade out, and then back to the temptress's den, and this is where you kind of learn that, like, you know, the fate of Norman, right?
Well, kind of.
Yeah. Oh, I guess
at least for now.
Yeah. Fair enough. You know, you see him getting dressed and stuff like that, kind of in the silhouette of the morning, and it's all like, you know, you think you're like, okay, wow, okay, so he's fine. You know, and then he starts looking in the mirror that's still covered up, and he starts noticing all these fucking scars and cuts and
these like deep scratches in his back. It's brutal.
Yeah, he looks fucked up, dude.
And he's like, "What, bitch? What'd you do to me?"
Yeah. And she like basically is just like, you know, like I marked you up, so you're gonna have to fucking suffer the consequences of your action.
Yeah, she did this shit on purpose, and she has this great line where she's like, "Those marks are nothing compared to what you're gonna get later, honey. I've given you something there's no cure for."
Dude,
like,
yeah, that's
what the fuck.
And she's just loving it, because she's just like, you know, like smoke. She lights a smoke, and she's just like being kind of like jovial about telling him this kind of shit, you know. And
she's like, yeah,
you know, and she basically just like lets him fucking leave, man. Like, yeah,
she's like maniacally laughing as he's leaving, and then he goes downstairs and takes a look in the mirror again, and now he's got like, there's like a new like gnarly looking wound on his forehead and on his neck. So like, yeah. We don't know, like, there's a sequence near the end where we actually find out his final fate, but yeah, he's looking pretty gruesome.
Yeah, exactly, man. Like, that's not, I wouldn't have called that a fun night.
No, it wasn't worth it. Even like, as she's like basically admitting that she did this because she knows that he's married. He's like, this is my first time, like something. Anyway,
yeah.
I mean, you shouldn't cheat on your wife.
Yeah. Lesson, listeners.
Right.
But anyway, so you get, back to Joel, who's kind of prepping to leave for his trip, and you see him noticeably leave the holy book behind.
Mm-hmm.
He keeps it back in his drawer, and this sort of like, I don't know. I guess this is one of those moments where you see some sort of like psychological connection that the Temptress has with things or something, because
presumably,
because like he like makes that move, and then like her, there's a shot of her like eyes open wide, like all like glowing red and stuff like that, in the light. And anyway, I thought that was like interesting. I was just like, okay, so clearly there's some sort of like they're building some sort of link to them. But
that's true.
Yeah, but then doesn't take you back to the bar shortly after that?
Yeah, we see this scene where which at right here, this scene was kind of random, but we get introduced to one of the characters again later. But there's like this weird scene where there's like a gay guy trying to hit on another guy, and the guy shuts him down, but also kind of admits, he's like, I basically telling the character, I am gay, but I'm not interested in your advances tonight. And it's just kind of random. And then we also get another Dougie where he's trying to hit on a girl and she leaves, and then he has this funny line where he's talking about her ass, and he's like, yeah, well, she has a welfare butt. It's fucking random.
Fucking Dougie, dude. Yeah, this whole the whole sequence is kind of just like, yeah, it's not, I don't know, some of these characters are not that important. Like it's weird that like interaction between the two gay men or whatever, just because it really only serves to set up one particular thing, which I'm sure we'll get to, but
well, yeah, of course.
Anyway, so you kind of also have like Dougie in this sequence sort of picking the bartender's brain, being like, yo, did you see that guy that, like, I think he asked the bartender about the last bartender?
Yeah, he's like, he like mentions how he's friends with them and hasn't seen him since he had a date with the Temptress. Yeah.
Yeah. And she's just over there, all these, just smiling and eating it up. She, I will say, like, very, like, maniacal. Like, the actress that plays that character has these really interesting, like sides where she switches like emotions. Like,
I agree completely. Yeah,
it's pretty cool. But then anyway, you get this sequence of like Joel traveling to New York. With this, like, he's like, I don't know, like there's like a voiceover and style narration of like, him describing like going up there or whatever. Yeah, not describing going up there necessarily, but
describing how like he's getting away from his grandma and needs to make this trip. But then we cut back to the bar, but it's like a new night, and this is where I'm talking about, where there's like a quick scene of Dougie telling a girl he's a race car driver. But then we see the Temptress talking to the guy that we just mentioned that in the previous scene was like getting hit on. Mm-hmm. We see her have this like weird interaction with him where she gives him her number, and then even like grabs him by the neck and kind of whispers in his ear about how being with her is much better. Almost like she knows that he's gay and that she's telling him that she can give him better, but we don't get any payoff to that yet, because as they're talking, she notices that Kay comes into the bar. Mm-hmm. So she goes and gets into a different seat, and long story short, Kay ends up seeing her, comes over and sits down with her and starts chatting, and then we learn here that he's an actor. Yeah.
It sounds like he's actually done a few movies, so good on Kay. But,
right.
But this is kind of one of those scenes that I was referring to, where the actress that plays the Temptress, she like becomes this like really sweet, kind of like forward personality. And
yeah, like a total different person. Totally, yeah.
But she pulls it off really well because like in other parts of the movie, she's like maniacal, you know?
Yeah, she does a good job.
And
we get a weird fucking sequence here.
Oh, dude, this is one of my favorite sequences of the whole fucking movie, man.
We learn it's like we learn pretty quickly that it's just Kay having this like fantasy. But yeah, it shows them chatting for a second. Like he signs an autograph for her little brother, she says. Then we see this saxophonist start to play this like sultry music, and we see them dancing, but then what happens? It's so fucking bizarre.
Dude, so like, I mean, just I love the silhouette of the saxophone thing, but then so like it kind of like zooms in on the saxophone, right? Mm-hmm. And then when it zooms out, like all of a sudden they're in the bed, like the bedroom. She's like feet on top of him, like straddling him, like feeding Kay grapes, and the bananas. Saxophone player's just playing in the background, just like the banana. I love it. Like the like I don't know. There's just something so unsexy about somebody pecking off like a chunk of banana and like then feeding it to you.
The grapes I understand, but the banana, yeah.
But it was so good. It was so fucking good. And they're macking on each other and shit. And like I said, like the entire
the saxophonist is like in the background in this blue light the whole time.
And then there's this great sequence where like they shows Kay's like feet still in socks and they're like wiggling like like happy wiggles, you know.
It's hilarious.
It's just great. But then it just hard cuts right back to reality where, you know, the Temptress is like, Kay, and like even gives him like a smack on the cheek or whatever. Yeah. And he's like, wake up, man.
Gets him to snap out of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
which was fucking wild, dude. I mean, that was just, yeah.
And then, you know, Kay unknowingly saves himself here because they're talking and she, you know, she mentions how, you know, we could keep this going, but Kay tells her, you know, I'm sorry, I got to go pick up my buddy. I got to go pick up my buddy Joel. And he's like, but we have each other's numbers, so, you know, we'll keep this going some other time. And then he even like goes up. It's like it doesn't show it, but it alludes to the fact that maybe she has some like supernatural powers because he gets up, walks like 2 feet, and he spins around to ask her name, and she's already gone.
Yeah, she's just like, and he even like comments. He's like, she couldn't have walked by. Like, you know? You can tell in that sequence where he's telling her that he has to leave that she's upset. You know, that was her prey for the night, and you know, she got turned down, which probably doesn't happen very often, considering. How we learn later that she's essentially a succubus, you know what I mean? Yeah, exactly. And then, so you get the kind of meeting between Joel and Kay where, like, you know, Joel's, like, waiting outside Kay's apartment building or whatever, or inside the apartment building, and, like, kind of, like, gives him a little, like, you know, it's not a jump scare. It's just, like, a friendly, like, spook, you know? And like anyway, they go back up to Kay's apartment, which is a pretty decent apartment, man.
I love some of the lines. How Kay like playfully ribs with Joel about his what he's wearing First he calls it like G.I. Joe, and then he's like, you look like Gomer Pyle and shit.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, I mean, it's admittedly Joel's rocking a pretty bland look, but you know, I love it. And I mean, as one of the greatest and most random moments I think in this movie is this like sequence where, you know, during all this, like, Kay's showing Joel around, and then they walk over to the mantle where what has caught Joel's attention, but a fucking like not assault rifle, but like an automatic weapon.
Yeah, it's a Uzi.
and then the K just like goes on to describe. I was like, this thing's Bertha. This thing's been with me through 3 sequels, and somehow it's like a working loaded weapon. Like,
right, it's like, not like a prop gun. It's like a.
Yeah, dude, and he keep going so far as being like, he like brags about, I keep my knives around and I keep bullets in the gun, and he like checks that it's loaded.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it was over the top, and I was just like, oh fucking hell. But yeah, I mean, you know, more or less you can kind of tell that they're just like, they're just such good friends, because like, you know, there's this moment where at the end of the whole sequence, you know, like they Kay breaks and it's like, all right, I'm gonna like one hug, and they give each other a hug.
Yeah, because Kay's talking about how they're gonna do manly shit, nothing mushy, and then he's like one hug. And then I like how you mentioned earlier where we're talking about like the very first scene where you were like, you know, we're not sure here if it's the next day, or later in the movie you do. This is the first like instance of what you're talking about, where the screen like pops up and it says the next day.
Dude, it felt like
why now?
It felt like it happens multiple times later on in this movie, but like it feels like they legit like didn't get, I don't know, maybe they didn't get time or budget to fill in some sort of gap scene or something, and so they just put that in there, because I don't know, it doesn't make any sense, but at the same time you don't need to like put that in there.
No,
most movies just go to the next day and you're just like, oh, it's the next day.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's funny.
It was just fucking redonkulous. But yeah, like it's, you know, basically the next day is you see them kind of hanging out in Kay's apartment. And they're just sort of talking about what they did, you know, and that's what I mean. Maybe like they're, you know, describing, I feel like they could have put a scene where Joel's like walking around town a little bit or something.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
But they just describe here that he like walks around town and he sees some like, he basically references that he saw, you know, some like really like poor condition,
unsavory
characters. And
there's even a funny where like Joel's trying out some lingo he's not used to, where he's like, what do you think of New York? And Joel's like, it's stupid, it's wild. They're trying out lingo that he's not accustomed to.
It's just like we're not giving enough credit to the presentation of this character. I don't know if this is just how James Bond III is, or if this is part of the character that he made, but like everything Joel says is so quiet and sort of like just soft. I enjoy it. It's such an interesting dynamic to the character, because he's because of that he just comes off as so unassuming, you know what I mean?
Exactly, and innocent, and just like a nice guy, likable person.
So when he tries out some lingo like that, it's just so fucking funny. It hits so hard. But Kay also goes off of this random tangent when they're talking about the unsavory elements of the city, and he's like, those are the harsh conditions of Reaganomics and shit like that.
Yeah, I know. It's so random. It is like it's like the only mention of that. Yeah, I was like,
weird. I get that's truth, but it's like, it's such a weird thing to just throw in once in the movie.
Yeah,
if you're gonna throw it in, you know.
He might as well have just looked at the screen and said, the government put crack in the hood.
That would have been but again, this is just kind of like a nice scene where you're sort of, you know, you kind of grow more depth to like their relationship. You know what I mean? Which is pivotal for this movie. But then what else?
Kay also is, he doesn't mention, he kind of mentions how he, the night before, how he met this, you know, this woman that.
Yes.
And they do these scenes where, like, while he's talking about the woman, they intersperse with what she's doing now.
Yeah.
Because he's like, she's innocent, and then it shows that. I mean, we're kind of explaining it probably, but long story short, so now the Temptress is with that guy from last night,
Yeah, like when they're like when he's talking, like he says like things like, you know, like she's innocent, and then he'll like cut to her like riding the dude, and then he'll be like, she's sexy, you know, and then like he'll cut back to her kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, yeah, but the scene with the temptress takes a fucking turn, if you ask me.
Oh man, yeah, it is.
Because like you said, she's with the guy that she's with at this point you're presuming he's like a gay man, or maybe he's gay, he's curious, and he's bi-curious, he's bi-curious, and she's like, you know, tempting him back to you know, the female form, and so they're getting it on, but then like she basically at some point flips him over.
Well, because at first, like, they're, you know, she's riding him, but then she gets off, and you can tell that, you know, she's not happy with his sexual performance.
Yeah.
Long story short.
And that's what I mean. So like basically she flips him over and starts fucking him.
It's weird, man.
And it gets weird, dude. It's like really uncomfortable because like clearly,
it is.
Because like at a point, like dude's even like stop, like
he says he says take it out.
Yeah, take it out. And then and so basically she just fucking like she like rapes this dude, and then fucking like you see the silhouette of her like behind these curtains just mauling the fucking guy. And like there's also blood splatter happening on the curtains and shit.
That's a cool shot, because right before she starts doing that, you see a shot of her hand, and her hand looks like it's like furry and has claws, and then like you said, it shows the silhouette scene of her just like thrashing this guy, and blood's just flying all over all the it's pretty, I mean,
it's pretty gruesome and a pretty fucked up scene, honestly.
But I would say I was a little uncomfortable with the scene of her like essentially fucking him. It was really weird.
Yeah. Like, I mean, honestly, like, you know, I mean, it's one of those things like rape scenes are such a fucking weird thing in movies, because it's like
they're not my favorite.
It's like a storytelling moment.
Well, yeah,
I understand that for some things, but it's some, I don't know, like I don't care for him.
I don't either. You know, I never have, and I never will.
Yeah, it's like such a fucking, I don't know. I think it was a weirdly used thing sometimes.
Totally.
Say. But in this sequence, it was also sort of strange. But
I just think that there's a way in movies that they could go about telling that in a different way without having to show. And even some movies, they're like explicit, drawn out, long, like.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know. I've never liked it either, because I don't, obviously, it's not like it's in their mind when they're thinking about this, but I don't think they put into consideration that who their viewers might be, and that there's a good chance of whoever's watching this movie might have gone through something like that and have some trauma connected to that. So I don't know. It's just,
I agree. But so after this bizarre scene, you kind of move back into a sequence which ends with her kind of, you know, silhouette sort of looking like, you know, and she kind of sounds like, you know, finally she's satisfied for the fucking night or whatever.
Yeah.
But then you cut back to Joel and Kay, and they're prepping to go out. They're prepping to go out for the night. And I loved this sequence. It was
great.
It was fun. And it's just the sequence of, you know, Kay being like, Joel, you have no fucking style. Go in the back, pick out some clothes, and, you know, he picks out a few different outfits, and Kay, you know, is like, nah.
It's kind of like that. It reminds me of like, there's like a scene in the Mighty Ducks like that where they go and get these women to try on all these outfits. It's like one of those like scenes.
Yeah, that's all right. Mighty Ducks 2. Oh,
that's right.
God.
It's the second one.
I love that. I love the Mighty Ducks.
But yeah, he's trying out all these fresh outfits. You know, he's essentially giving him a makeover for the night so they can go out.
Yeah, and they finally land on one. Joel's looking pretty fly.
Yeah.
And you know, then of course, where do they end up?
Oh man, yeah.
The back of the bar, man.
So real quick, if I was some form of paranormal creature that was feeding on men, I would not go to the same fucking place every night. You would start to draw suspicion. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like it seems really like a bad move for this creature.
Oh yeah, we also get a quick shot of the Temptress looking like she's using magic to put on her pantyhose.
That's
right.
That is right. It's like one of the only like magic moment kind of thing, magic, item manipulation thing moments in the movie, but it's so random.
Yeah,
it's cool. She's got a wide range of powers. But and then
we also get the screen that has another one where it says later that night.
Exactly. like
no shit, you think?
Yeah, that's where the last scene left us. We know. Like, is so strange, and it dives right back in. Of course, when you go into the bar, you're gonna run into Dougie, and so Dougie, it's like Dougie trying to hit on yet another random lady, and he's basically trying to like pick her up by being like, "Yo, I saw you in a penthouse I have framed on my wall."
Yeah, what a tactic to pick up a woman.
Like what? There's this guy, dude. This fucking guy. Oh my god, I just can't believe Dougie, dude.
It's fucking awesome.
I love it. And then I mean it's so great that like how he gets blown off here too, because she like she's basically like no, I was in Vogue, and
yeah,
and then some like rich looking dude comes in and like swoops right by, basically just like puts his arm in front of Dougie and just starts leaning on the bar.
Like, who are you?
Yeah, who are you? And then just takes the lady off, and then so it ends up with like the whole crew's at the bar. Everybody's there. It's later that night, as we know for sure.
Yeah.
and Kay and Joel are both in the bar, and posted up at the end in her normal spot seems to be the Temptress. And it's strange because here again it seems like there should have been some other scene right before this or something, because here you just jump into a conversation where Joel's like, I've met someone. You know what I mean? And so you've had no context. Like Joel at this point in time has not talked to the Temptress as a viewer, and so you're just like, oh, okay, what? And so basically, slowly but surely though, you see like the Temptress kind of get up from her seat and kind of come walking over to where the two of the Kay and Joel are standing, and like right in Kay's face, like denies being the lady that he met the other night. I was like, what the fuck is happening, man?
Yeah, she like pretends like she's never met him before. She's like, and who are you? It's interesting.
She's playing some fucking games, dude.
I think that like it never explains it because this continues later, but I think that part of it might be because she's still bitter at him for turning her down. You know what I mean? But I don't think that's the thing, because like you said, there's some kind of connection between her and Joel, and there's like a line later where they think that she lured him here to New York, because we learn later. Anyway, we'll get onto all that later. But yeah, so basically, they go off and have a drink, and then Dougie comes up and approaches Kay and just has this quick scene where he's like, she's bad news, she scares the shit out of me, and all this stuff.
Yeah, I love how he starts the conversation though. He's like, "Hey man, I don't mean to cock block or nothing."
Random.
And he basically tells him that like, she's suspicious and shit, like you were just saying. And I mean, it's just that scene threw me for a loop though. Also, when Dougie and Joel are talking, I did want to know, this was another cool shot I liked, where it was like they had this like kind of darkened silhouette darkened like scene behind him that was kind of illuminated a little bit, and the way it was just, the lighting was just really cool. Anyway, so shortly after that conversation though, you see the two characters, Joel and Kay, going back to the apartment.
Yeah.
And like they kind of have this like tense conversation about the lady.
Yeah, but and Kay at this point still hasn't said anything to Joel about how that was the girl that he met the night before. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He hasn't said anything yet, but yeah, they do have like they do essentially get into like this argument, and Kay even brings up like, well, would if say you got with a woman and things got hot and heavy, like, would you sleep with her? And Joel's like, like, no, fornication is a sin, he says.
Yeah.
And then they met.
I want to take a clip of that.
Yeah. And then they mentioned something that we were led to believe that, Joel lived a sheltered life, but he mentions how he can take care of himself.
Yeah. Maybe Joel's a secret martial artist.
Oh, wow.
But then it kind of cuts from there to like a scene of the grandma, right? She's like looking at a picture of baby Joel. And she's like, like, I don't know, saying stuff
praying
like,
for him.
Yeah, like, keep my baby safe. And this is what I mean, where it's like this lady, the Temptress, has some powers because from New York or whatever, presumably, she's like, in New York they show her like playing with a snake and laughing maniacally, and
she's bleeding from the eye.
Yeah, she's bleeding from the eyes, and then the picture of baby Joel starts bleeding from the eyes, and then grandma's lap, and she like has this moment.
Like, yeah. But she's not sure if she like hallucinated it or not. Yeah, it's cool. It's a cool little.
I liked it.
But yeah, we start to see, that the Temptress has, some power, some more powers than we were led to believe. You know what I mean?
For sure. And I mean, the next scene is really interesting because this is like, the next scene like is I think the first time the Temptress is in Kay's apartment. And
then here's the thing. So how they had the title cards for the next day, the next morning? Why didn't they like? They should have just continued it with the next morning, where we already know, like you said. So those, like you said, I think what you said about maybe they put those in there just to like shave a couple seconds off the runtime because just random. But yeah, the next day we're back at Kay's apartment. There's a knock on the door. Joel answers, and it's the Temptress.
Yeah. And she comes in, and while I guess maybe Joel's finishing getting ready or something,
or because they're gonna go on a date.
Because they're going on a date. Short. She and Kay have a conversation about like the fact that
he calls her out.
Yeah, he basically calls her out, and he sees that she does not have a reflection in the mirror in his living room. Yeah,
he's like going on this rant. He's like, "Bitch, you must be smoking," or something like that. And he turns around and notices that she doesn't have a reflection. He even does like a double take to make sure that he's seeing what he's seeing.
Yeah, exactly. So he's like, now he's fucking spooked, which is
and she's like, and then there's this. He notices it, and then she walks up to him, and she's like, "Is something wrong, Kay?" But just then Joel walks up. And they leave for their date, and Kay like briefly tries to, like, he doesn't flat out say anything to Joel about the, again, he doesn't say that he knows her or doesn't say anything about the reflection. He just tries to get his attention as he's walking out the door. But we can see that Joel is, happy about the fact that, this is the first time that he's had some,
it's probably the first date he's ever gone on.
Yeah. It's the first time that an attractive woman has ever showed interest in him. So I think that regardless of what he said, that, he wouldn't listen to it and would go on the date anyway.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's no stopping Joel at this point.
Right.
But, and then, so they go off on their date, and then it kind of cuts to a scene of back at the bar where Dougie supposedly is telling somebody that they have a, quote, nuclear booty.
But no one's there. He's like practicing or something.
Yeah, that's the fucking funny thing. He like shows that there's the chair next to him is completely empty, and like, anyway, so Kay's like, "Yo, what's going on here? Like, this lady didn't have a reflection, like, and like." It's funny because at the moment you're just like, who the fuck is Dougie to like help you out, man? Mm-hmm. But you find out. You find out who Dougie is.
We learn he's some like form of police officer because he has this line where they're looking through files, and he's like, we're a branch of the federal government that specializes in murder under strange circumstances, and that in a lot of unsolved cases, the supernatural could be responsible.
Yeah. So So he just happens to be like a fucking X-Files agent or something.
There's no mention of him being a cop at all at this point. Then they just randomly drop into your lap that, he's like fucking a black fucking Scully.
Yeah.
Or Black Mulder, sorry.
It's just so fucking great. It's just like... You're like, okay, like of all the things happening in this movie, that's not going to deter me.
Makes sense. Yeah. Right. Like, it's great.
And then it kind of captures a moment of the date that Joel and the Temptress are on.
Well, real quick before that, the Dougie mentioned tells Kay this story about a past case involving like I forget exactly what they talk about, but it's about some guy that mentions he had a date with and slept with the devil.
And he had snakes crawling in his stomach or something like that, right? Yeah, and then
his agency kind of dismissed it, but he's been on her case ever since. He got a tip that led to the bar, and he's been watching her ever since and noticed how every time she leaves with the man, that the man's never seen again.
Yeah. So Dougie's already on to her. Dang. Yeah, it's so, which is interesting because it gives more history to that character. Clearly, she's potentially been operating for some time.
Right.
Yeah, that's interesting, man. And so then the date scene happens where it's like, I mean, it just seems awkward. It just, to be honest, the date between Joel and the Temptress. But it's like, they got some sort of like, little cafe, and Joel is kind of, he's describing that he wants to be a minister at one point, and then he's like, or no, he's not even describing that. He's saying, he's talking about his profession. And she mentions that, like, if you're a world-renowned minister, and he's like, I never told you I was going to be a minister.
Yeah, and she she just brushes it off and kind of is just like, I could just tell by, how you carried yourself that you were, or something like that.
Yeah, and so like interspersed with this sequence, you have these cutscenes of Dougie and Kay visiting, what was it, Madame Sonia?
Madame Sonia.
And,
fortune teller.
Yeah, which is a really random hookup. But they go to her and to explore what the Temptress might be, I suppose.
Yeah, she drops a lot on them. She's basically telling them that she doesn't use the word succubus, but she basically is like, she's a creature that seduces people and preys on the weak-minded to destroy their soul. And then she also goes on this line about she can only achieve real victory by destruction of a truly innocent soul, and that Joel is the very last of his ancestral line left alive to teach what is right. And that she's an ancient demon and her name is Temptation.
What? It's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot. It's basically everything you need to know about the character.
Totally, like an hour into the movie, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and then sort of like earlier with the sort of unsavory scene, we'll call it. There, like, this scene kind of goes back and forth between the date and the. Right. The fortune teller, and like when the fortune teller is kind of describing aspects of the story, cuts back to like the Temptress being like, I just want to do what's right, Joel, and like stuff like that, so it kind of is like this I thought was kind of a cool back and forth, as opposed to the earlier one. But yeah, so basically they find out what they need to about the creature, but the Madame Sonia at one point kind of takes a strange turn.
Yeah, because there's a shot of them at their date. The Temptress mentions that you can see that she starts feeling weird, and she excuses herself for a moment to go to the bathroom, and we see some more of her powers here, because she essentially she possesses the fortune teller, and through the fortune teller threatens Dougie and Kay, prompting them to leave horrified. You know what I mean?
Yeah, dude. At one point, I think the fortune teller yells, "You dare make war with the beast!"
That's right. That's right.
Like, I was like, what a fucking epic line.
It was cool. And then and after that, you know, it's like that probably took a lot out of the Temptress to do that, because she goes back to the table and mentions to Joel that she's fine, but she needs to go home and lie down.
Yeah. And so they leave the cafe, and when they're leaving, it kind of does this like close-up shot of the flowers that were on the table that are now dead looking.
Yeah, they're wilted. It was cool.
Yeah. And from here, kind of, I believe it's a bit of another like dreamlike sequence
for Grandma. Yeah.
For Grandma. Everybody's got dream sequences.
I guess so.
You know, it's
this one's interesting though, because we learn the fate of some characters essentially.
Yeah, like in this one, it follows Joel running down that alley that we kind of caught a glimpse of earlier, and he runs into the bar, but the bar's not looking like the bar we're familiar with. It's like the lighting's all off. It's littered with dead bodies, it seems like. Yeah. And one of them happens to be motherfucking Norman from earlier, dude.
Yeah, they're all her victims from earlier, but yeah, one's Norman, who looks like one of his eyes is missing.
Yeah, and you find out that he basically went home and got shot through the fucking face by his wife, man.
Yeah, it's great. It's cool how they did that. Because you know, before then you didn't have any idea what happened to him, and they could have just left it at that. But it was cool in this scene that you learn his fate.
Yeah, exactly. And you also see like bartender number 1 from earlier.
Yeah.
Who like offers Joel a drink.
A Bloody Mary. Yeah.
A Bloody Mary.
We also see the black hooded figure that we've seen throughout the movie. It like gets closer and closer to Joel in this dream, and all the dead people start screaming at him, "Come to the fold, Joe." And as the figure gets closer and starts to kiss Joel, Grandma jolts awake, and you know, she's visibly terrified and starts praying again.
Yeah, because Grandma doesn't want anything to happen to her little Joel.
Poor old Joel, right? And neither does Kay, which we learned in the next scene.
For him, man.
Yeah,
Kay's really fucking looking out for this kid who's just like getting himself mixed up in some fucking shit.
Mm-hmm. Right, because Kay comes home, and you know, he basically tries to warn Joel about her, and this is where he finally is like, you know that woman I was telling you about, the sexy one? Well, that's her. And like I mentioned earlier, where regardless of anything that Kay says, like Joel's probably going to dismiss it because this is the first time he's had luck with the girl. You know what I mean? And he probably sees Kay as being jealous or whatever. And that's essentially what happens here.
Yeah.
And Joel and Kay kind of gets a little rude here, but he is doing it out of love for his friend and trying to get him to safety, where he's like, man, just pack your shit and leave and go home, man. You don't need to be mixed up here. And this is what I'm talking about, where he leaves and Joel is seen crying. And I don't know, it was effective because it got to me. Like, I almost started crying.
Dude.
It was a heavy scene.
Well, yeah. And I mean, like, that's what I mean. Like, they do shockingly give you enough, like, emotional context in their relationship to like make that scene really work. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, it was just like a surprising, like, well acted moment.
Because from Joel's perspective, you know, he's in town to see his friend. He obviously doesn't know anything about the supernatural aspects, but he's probably just seeing it as his friend is upset that he got this girl and is pushing him out, and you would be upset too.
Oh, exactly.
But anyway,
so this leads to like Kay and Dougie, I believe, meeting up kind of with the bartender, correct?
Real quick, before that, we see Kay goes to a payphone, and it doesn't, you don't hear audio of him talking because there's like another like hip hop soundtrack over it. But long story short, Kay goes to a payphone and calls Joel's grandmother to tell her about the situation. And then we're back to Kay and Dougie, who go and talk to the current bartender that's working at the bar.
Yeah. Bartender number 2. He and they basically like walk up to him and they ask him some questions about the lady, but then they also give him a fucking vial of holy water, freshly blessed,
yes,
to dump into her drink.
Yeah, they're like, you're gonna go in there, you're gonna put it in her drink, and you're gonna get away from there as fast as you can.
Yeah, dude. And I was surprised about how reluctant the bartender was, because he basically goes fucking in there and just does it.
Mm-hmm.
Although I love this cut where there's tension in the air in this scene, because he's making the drink, then he's trying to sneakily put something else in there, and you can see the temptress watching him in the background. And so as he approaches with this free drink on the house beverage, she immediately is suspicious. But I love this cut where Dougie describes what might happen if she drinks it.
Man.
And he's everything is on the table. He's you're gonna burp, fart, he's gonna gargle, and all sorts.
It's hilarious the way he delivers
slobbering
it.
And farting and gagging.
He's gonna be burping
and
farting and slobbering all over the place. Yeah, it's great.
And she does, dude. You see, she slams the drink or whatever, and then there's just this cut of her falling on the floor, fucking hacking up a lung, screaming.
Yeah,
and shit,
just flailing around.
Yeah, and that's when Dougie and Kate that's their moment. They gotta bust in, and they're trying to fucking kill her in this scene, man.
Yeah, they wanna, because they kind of mentioned earlier that they want to cut her heart out and then bury her somewhere else. That's their plan.
Yeah. And
but
it doesn't doesn't go as planned, it seems like. Because the second Dougie pulls out that fucking knife and gets on top of her, ready to cut out her heart,
lunge it into her. Yeah,
he gets stopped by some sort of supernatural force. Also, there a bunch of bottles randomly start exploding,
popping and exploding.
Shelf. Yeah, it's very clearly they just put some fucking firecrackers or something.
Totally. Yeah.
but he gets stopped by some supernatural force, and he can't plunge the knife in, and then
even when both of them try.
Yeah, and it even starts almost turning on him, but I love there's this shot of the temptress going all ham and flailing around. She's just right
it's
kind of fucking camera.
It's low budget exorcist-y for them.
Oh scene, god, yeah, dude, it's fucking great.
She pops up. She like Undertaker style, rises back up, rises back up, and they run off. And she has this great line where she uses her demonic voice again, which she's done a couple times, and she's like, "You fools! Yeah. You can run, but you cannot hide. You will now fight the beast."
Dude.
And now, the movie was kind of slow. There were some interesting scenes, some cool shots, like we said. But the movie was slow, and now it, picks up the pace for the last little bit.
Oh, yeah, dude. Yeah, it definitely, it gets its fucking legs and starts running near the end of this movie. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they go outside, and they find that their fucking car seems to have disappeared, which was super random.
Yeah, and then they also decide to split up, which is of course they do.
Also random. Yeah. It's it was you just immediately make the classic horror movie mistake. Mm-hmm.
And it quickly backfires on Dougie. He's we see him running, a car starts chasing him. He runs and sees another car come up, and he notices that it's the bartender. So he goes and knocks on the door and gets in, but he's greeted by a demon bartender, essentially.
Yeah,
he's got the big teeth. He's shaking the bottle of holy water. But then I love this scene, this next shot where Dougie looks over, and there's this really it's this other creepy demon that has glowing red eyes. It's wearing a black veil. You can't totally see its face, and essentially it lunges at Dougie, and it shows a close-up as his face as he's screaming. So
yeah,
pretty much immediately after they have this great idea of splitting up, Dougie gets fucking taken out. So
just flat. It's fucking ridiculous. And it sucks that Dougie met the fate he did, you know. But then you see like I think Kay gets back to his apartment, but there's also Joel and the Temptress together.
Yeah,
and they're having like a bit of a makeout sesh.
Because Kay gets home, like you said, he pops in his apartment. He's like, oh,
yeah, he practices some quick kung fu.
He's like looking around for Joel, but then as a viewer, we learn that Joel's not there. Like you said, he's with the Temptress. They're starting to kiss and you know, it moves from like a simple kiss to like a French kiss to like a really steamy French kiss, you know, where if it was anyone else, like the next step would like you'd be fucking. Yeah. But he stops it, you know what I mean? He fights the temptation and stops it.
And then she offers him a drink.
Real quick before that happens, we get a cut of another shot of Kay, who's at his fridge takes a drink of beer, and he hears something calling his name.
Oh, God, that's right.
But then the Temptress asks Joel if he wants a glass of wine.
Yeah, and that's where Joel kind of, he declines.
He doesn't want to drink.
The Temptress drinks some of it, and then like Max on him again, and then like next
spits
thing
it into his mouth.
Yeah, he's like all feeling discombobulated.
Yeah, she drugged him.
She fucking drugged him, dude.
Yeah.
She fucking that. Why would you do that to Joel?
I know, he's a nice guy. He's a nice guy. But
fucking nice.
We go back to Kay though, and his demise is probably the coolest in the movie.
It most certainly is, I think. Do you want? It's cool because like the TV pops on in his living room, right? And it seems like he is on the TV.
Yeah, this kind of gave me like there was some definite Nightmare on Elm Street vibes.
Totally, dude.
The Johnny Depp scene from the first one, you know what I mean?
100. It's just so cool because he like, as he approaches like the TV, he notices that the version of him on the TV isn't like acting the same as him.
Right. It's even got like a different voice kind of.
Yeah, and it's like beckoning him towards the TV. At one point in time, I think like the lights kind of start like flashing and stuff, and the closer Kay gets to the TV, the Reagan doll starts like giggling and shit.
Yeah, it's really weird.
But then what happens, man?
He makes the fatal mistake of touching the TV, and it starts sucking him in. And I wonder. I always think about, and I've seen, like I said, there's like this Tom Savini documentary. There's been other documentaries about how they achieved some of the effects they did, but I wonder how they did this, because he gets like slowly sucked into the TV, like hand first, and then up to his waist, and then gets all the way sucked into the TV. I wonder how they did that shot. And then in a really cool scene, like you see his face on the TV, and then all his blood and guts erupt from the screen in a quick geyser.
Yeah, dude.
And then it has where it's just the screen of the TV, and you see this, like, it reminded me of a scene from The Frighteners where like the face is popping out from the wall, but this face like protrudes from the TV and screams and is moving around. I wonder how they did all that. Like that was a really fucking cool. Even if it, like I said, it kind of gave you like rip off Nightmare on Elm Street vibes, but it was still a fantastic scene.
Oh, 100. Yeah, it was still really fucking cool, really effective. Yeah, this it was probably my favorite scene in the movie, just because of how clever I thought it was, and I loved the belch like that, like you described, like he gets eaten fully, and then like like the mouth on the TV burps up all that, I think after like a quick pan through it, like it looks like it's like some hamburger meat and fake blood.
right
It is but trauma. but then so presumably Kay has now met his fate, and
yeah, of course,
and you kind of wake up to yet another dream sequence, or you don't wake up to it. You see another dream sequence occurring.
Joel's having a dream where he's like in his childhood bed. The Temptress is naked next to him, and out of nowhere, and this is like the other quick Samuel L. Jackson scene, but his father, the minister, comes in and he's like, "Sinner, fornicator. And but Joel quickly, he's like, my father's dead, you're not my dad. And in this dream, his demonic dad starts to choke him, but then we see that what's really happening is that the temptress is on him and choking him because Grandma walks in and holy shit, she made it to fucking New York fast as fuck.
I couldn't believe that. I was like, Grandma's here? Fucking, dude, she just fucking boots open the door. Like, she's basically like, I don't think she yells it, but she's all like, get the fuck off of my Joel, basically, and like kicks open the door. But the temptress just fucking immediately flings around, like, and like, uses whatever like weird crazy power she has to like violently throw the grandma against the fucking wall, dude. Like Grandma takes some fucking hits in this scene.
Yeah, she just gets like blasted against the wall. It's great.
I was like, oh god.
But out of okay, I understand demons having powers. But how the hell did Grandma get from North fucking Carolina to New York that fast?
That's what I'm fucking wondering. Like, Grandma's a fucking demon, okay?
She must have powers too.
Yeah, she must have fucking powers.
But yeah,
oh
Joel,
my god, dude.
Grandma gets, thrown against the wall. The temptress is on.
We forgot to mention, dude, Joel, before the temptress even gets off of him, snaps his fucking wrist, and it looks gnarly, dude. Like it snaps, like she might as well have just cut it off because it's basically just dangling there from what it looked like.
That would be so painful.
Yeah, and then throws him against the fucking wall, too.
Yeah. And then the temptress kind of has a transformation about her. She's now sporting, there's this quick shot of her where she's sporting fangs. Her face is still normal, but there's this cool green light that's glowing on her. And then she snarls at them both, and we see her demon form. She's got this like these big black alien looking eyes. Her head starts growing larger, and you can tell that now she's in her like demon form. You know what I mean?
Yeah, dude. It was a pretty cool like sequence, if you ask me. Like not like a full blown transformation. They did like some good work around the eyes and like the fangs in the mouth and stuff were really cool. But then it's like, you see Joel sees kind of like the Bible and like a cross or whatever hanging. Or not hanging, but like kind of on the floor across the room, and
it's like reflected, like the sunlight's coming in from the window reflects on it.
Yeah, and so he kind of starts trying to make his way towards it. There's these cuts of like the sermon that Samuel Jackson was giving him. The power is in the word, Joel.
And she's also choking his grandma. The life out of his grandma right now.
Yeah, the fucking bejesus out of his grandma, because like she's like pinned the grandma above, like off the ground against the corner of the fucking wall, and she's like bleeding from the neck because she's getting choked so hard. Like Grandma is fucking tough. Okay.
Yeah, because she even manages to like spit out the words too, like the power's in the word. I'm like, damn, that's a strong ass bitch, dude.
Grandma don't quit, man. Yeah, she's here for her Joel, man. And Joel, it's like this weird, like, moment where, he's basically like making up his mind to fully embrace his lineage and his faith. And,
totally.
And he like picks up the cross and, starts like, I think that's the whole thing, right? He says like the power's in the word or something like that. And then he like, damn it, Bowie's got my fucking head on. And then he basically like uses the cross to just blast the power of fucking Christ into the wild fucking temptation.
He's like, I rebuke you, demon, to the pits of hell.
Yeah, dude, it's pretty epic. The cross starts glowing, like it's like, I don't know. There's like I don't know what kind of filter they use, but like
it's the only bad shot of the movies.
Yeah,
is that weird? Yeah,
it was strange. It was like it wasn't like a negative, but it was kind of like a negative, of the photo. But it shows like her, in pain and writhing around, and then it eventually cuts like to her basically like exploding, like her head exploding.
It and then the aftermath of her like body on the ground. This is like the only like cheesy. It reminded me of Troll 2, where there's this scene of like this character that gets drinks this green stuff, and the goblins start eating her. And honestly, I'm surprised we haven't reviewed Troll 2, because that's like the perfect movie I have in mind when we started this fucking podcast. Well, that'll be a milestone episode.
I've just been waiting for it. I love that movie.
But yeah, it kind of reminded me of that, like the aftermath of her body, but it is what it is, because the rest of the movie, there's some great effects, so it's okay.
Yeah.
But Joel and Grandma hug and embrace, and we think that's going to be the end of the movie, but we get one of these really cool, like, to mention Tales from the Crypt again, like 90s Tales from the Crypt-esque, like twist type of shock endings, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So you see, down, like, coming up down like a street, this fucking fancy looking car. It looks like is it a limo? Yeah,
it's a limo. It's a smaller limo, but it's a limo.
Yeah. So it ain't a stretch, but
still, it's a limo.
Yeah. But anyway, so out walks somebody looking, you don't know who yet, looking pretty slick, walks by the cab. The driver rolls down the window, and it's the fucking demon, driver from earlier.
No, it's Kay.
Oh, that's Kay.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I thought it was, I just thought it was like the same bartender driver thing from earlier. Oh, it's fucking Kay.
And he's like licking his demon teeth. Yeah, it's great. Oh
yeah, dude. The demon teeth in this movie were fucking awesome, by the way. And yeah, so you find out that, the person that gets out of the car, it turns out it's who?
It's Dougie, because it does this great shot where we see this woman at the bar, and she goes to light someone's cigarette with a match, and the person uses the same line from the beginning of the movie that the Temptress made about how you should use a lighter, it'll last longer. And then we see it's Dougie, where you're led to believe that now he's an incubus, essentially, and now he's the fucking demon. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool,
man. It's pretty fucking cool. Yeah, this movie, it had its moments, man. It was kind of like, at first I was really, because of how slow it starts, I think, kind of, it was sort of like, oh man, where's this movie gonna go? But once it really starts kind of getting into itself, and the tail end of it, where it really starts picking up on some action, some of the coolest sequences you see, I kind of enjoyed this movie in a way. I was like, it's really, really bad.
Yeah.
But it's also pretty fucking fun.
Yeah, it's not. I enjoyed it. It was better than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. Honestly, I'd probably give this movie something like, I'd give it four Dougies out of 7 Dougies.
Okay. Yeah, you would. I'd give it 2 3/4 Kung Fu surgeons out of 5.
Oh, no. Yes. Oh, that alone is worth it. Just to know what a Kung Fu surgeon is.
Totally.
Nah, this is a fun movie. It's another one that's on Shudder. So if you're listening and you have Shudder, which you should, if you have the availability, you should definitely hop on there and check it out, man.
Totally.
Sure. Yeah, I even though we got Drew Barrymore with the Samuel L. Jackson thing, I think it was still fun.
It was good
overall, man.
If you got nothing better to do some night, go watch it. You won't be disappointed. It's got its moments.
I agree. But we got, this is episode 36. We got 37 coming up, and we've been, as always, we're scheming and planning. Then the next special episode, and this is probably the one after that, I think we have fairly figured out. But you keep listening, we'll keep recording, because why? I mean, we're always watching horror movies anyway.
Right.
Right. All right, you hot dogs, make sure you turn yourselves into corn dogs by following along. And,
totally. We'll see you next time.
We'll see you next time.